Good morning, Boker Tov. Welcome back to 10 Minutes of Meaning, Learning Sefer Tanya together. We're still at the end of Perek Aleph of Tanya. I want to thank our generous sponsors, our dear friends Marilyn and Michael Fidak. Thank you for sponsoring our Tanya Shir and so much more that you do. Please help yourself. New slushy flavors, coffee, pastries in the Reb Shayla corner at the Boker Tov Synagogue. We're at the end of the first Perek of Tanya, not teaching Tanya, but learning Tanya together. So much to learn. The Baal Tanya, the Alter Rebbe, has begun by telling us that there are two souls that every Jew has. There are two souls. There are multiple parts. There's the authentic self. We'll begin Perek Beis in a moment. There's the Chelek Elokah Mima'al. There's the piece of us that is the authentic, pure, holy self. And then on top, we're made up of different parts. And the parts are manifestations or expressions of this other soul that we have, that we call the animal soul, Klipa, the three Klipos, and the fourth Klipa in particular, Klipas Noga. They're a function of the ego. And the Alter Rebbe, the Baal Tanya, taught us that this animal soul, the nefesh, is badam. It's in our blood. It's part of who we are. And this is so critical. It's important. We mentioned it, but I want to come back and emphasize it, that the notion that we have an animal soul, we have the senses through which we experience the world. We have the ego that is trying to interpret or filter the world through it. It is not something extraneous. It's not something outside ourselves. This is not a virus that we need to heal. This is part of the very definition of who we are. When God took our holy soul and put it in our body and placed us to operate and navigate this world, part of that is having these klipa, the sitra, confronting the sitra achra, living with this animal soul that is not external. It's not a virus that we have. There's no virus software that you can protect yourself from it. It's badam. It's in the blood. It's part of who we are. And it expresses itself, we saw, mislabeshes badam adam lachyos aguf, umimenu boas kol amidos, and from it, through the four elements of the world, fire, water, air, and earth, we see the four elements expressing itself through these qualities. And we saw anger and arrogance come from fire, and desire comes from water, and the notion of halilos v'leitzanos, the idea of silliness and sarcasm and mockery and cynicism and boasting, it comes from wind, hot air, it's empty, vacuous, atzlos and atzvos. And then we saw that melancholy or sadness, which leads to procrastination and laziness, it comes from earth. But not only do these negative attributes, the sitra, the ego drives us towards those negative behaviors as a result of the elements or the animal soul that's not extraneous to us but in us. This is where we left off. But also the positive temperaments, which the Talmud testifies that all of the Jewish people are born with. Gemilas Chasadon, Boas Mimena. The Gemara in Yevamos on Daf Ayin Tes, Gemara lists the third there, that we are Rachmanim by Shanim in Gomle Chasadim. The distinctive character traits of a Jew. If you want to know somebody's Jewish, then look and see in them compassion. You'll see that an instinct towards compassion, not cruelty, not being callous, not being indifferent, but being kind. Gomle Chasadim, and doing something with that, helping, giving relief to others, and by Shanim, the capacity to recoil with a sense of some boundary's been crossed, some border's been violated. A person blushes, a person feels uncomfortable or awkward by shanim. We live in a world where anything goes, any state of dress or undress, any behavior, any act of intimacy, privately, publicly, people share, people overshare, thanks to social media. There's no sense of busha, not a busha which is debilitating, not a shame which knocks you down, but the shame that's healthy, that says something here is off, something here is wrong. You know, busha, by shanim, shame is for the soul what pain is for the body. Nebuch, there's illness where a person has a neuropathy, a certain nerve damage, where they're unable to feel pain, and it's extraordinarily dangerous. Because a person could have internal bleeding, internal damage, a person could break their leg, a person could have an injury and not even know it. Pain is a gift, pain is a bracha, because pain alerts that something's wrong, something's off, something needs to be treated. Pain is a healthy. A person who doesn't feel pain, they don't know, it's dangerous. So busha is the pain of the soul. When you say, well, 1 second, this is awkward, I'm embarrassed, I'm ashamed, I'm blushing, I'm uncomfortable, some boundary's been violated. So Jews, Yidden, the Gemara in Yevamos tells us, still have that capacity, those boundaries. So this comes also from the animal soul, from the senses through which we experience the world. It's not only manifests itself in the negative attributes of the four elements, but there's also positive. But here, the Alter Rebbe says something which for some may be uncomfortable. We need to spend a little time unpacking it. That the midos tovos, that the good qualities Shabbateva Kol Yisrael that are inherent, innate to every Jew, but told us some of these things, they are inherent and innate to every Jew. Ki b'Yisrael nefesh zu deklipa yimi klipas noga sheish bagam kein tov. Because in the case of the Jewish people, this animal soul, again, not extra or a virus to who we are, but innate to who we are, the animal soul we're born with. Our goal is not to slaughter or obliterate or purge the animals, to train the animal. To train the animal to act on our behalf and in our interests. But this animal soul of klipa is from a derivative called klipas noga. Therefore, klipos, the first three are all bad. A klipa, the peel, the shell, it blocks the light. But the klipas noga has some easily accessible sparks of good. That klipas noga lets in some of the light, that fourth peel or shell, that fourth layer of the ego. Vihimi sod eitz hadas tovara. And this mixing of the sparks, the fourth klipa, klipas noga, is resulting from the secret of, the Torah tells us, the eitz hadas tovara, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Rav Chaim Miller in his commentary quotes the Zohar, that the four derivatives of klipa alluded to by the pasuk, and as we'll see, the first of these three klipos are completely negative, but the fourth, there's a brightness. And the Zohar explains, even though this side is nothing but the side of impurity, there's a brightness around it. Man does not have to drive it away. There's no need to treat it with disdain. The animal soul, and even that ego that drives you, can drive you towards the negative, the bad. But that sense of I, that ego, that desire for the ego to be gratified and satisfied, can also drive you towards good. So this fourth klipa of noga is predominantly a negative egocentric energy like the other, and there's nothing but the side of impurity. But on the other hand, its brightness has a spark of holiness lying just below the surface that could be redeemed. So we can manifest that. How do you manifest that ego for good? It can impact if you're driven to do the right thing for the right reason in the way that you experience and sense the world. Now here the Alter Rebbe says what seems to be controversial, at least to some. Mashe'ein kain nafshos umas ha'olam. That notion that the Jew, in the klipas noga, even in the animal soul that the Jew has, it can be directed and it can be expressed and it can be manifest for the good, that there's that innate sense of goodness within that fourth klipa, is not true with the other nations of the world. Hey mishar klipas tmei she'ein b'hem tov klal, k'mo shekos beitz Chaim, which the Eitz Chaim Vital writes from the other three impure klipos that are void of any good. And v'chol tivo da'avdan umos legarmayu avdinan. And the Eitz Chaim's approach, which the Alter Rebbe endorses, embraces, supported by the Zohar, that all good that non-Jews do, they do for themselves. The Jew can do a good that is benevolent, that is altruistic, that truly is in the service of Hashem, that is to the benefit of the other, but the non-Jewish soul can't direct or drive or channel or train that animal, that even when they do good, which undeniably they do, but they're doing it for themselves. That according to Rabbi Gamliel, the Gemara says all the charity and kindness done by the nations of the world is only for themselves to inflate their ego, to make them feel good, for their honor or glory, to attract their attention, attach their attention. So this tremendous distinction that the Alter Rebbe drives here between the Jewish soul, now which soul? We said there are two souls. We haven't even gotten to the second soul that we all have. That's the beginning of Perek Beis. With that, we ended Perek Aleph. The very beginning of Perek Beis, Nefesh Hashenis b'Yisrael chelek Elokah mimal mamash. That the Jew has a second soul, which is a piece, an expression of God Himself. He breathed life into us. We each carry a spark. We are each an extension, expression of Hashem in this world. So at the end of the first parak, when he's contrasting the Jewish soul with the non-Jewish soul, which soul is he talking about? He's not talking about the godly soul in us. He hasn't even gotten to that yet, and that the non-Jew, he says, doesn't have. So we're talking about the contrast within the level of the animal soul, So that the animal soul of the Jew has a different instinct or intuition than the animal soul of the non-Jew. Now everybody, at least contemporary commentaries in the Tanya, all have footnotes, where they awkwardly are trying to refer you, read this essay, see that, understand exactly what the Alter Rebbe meant here, not shying away or backing away from his position, but trying to, in a politically correct world, trying to express it, maybe in a way which can be better understood a little bit. And what does that mean? What does that mean? In fact, there's a collection of Rabbi Soloveitchik. Rabbi Soloveitchik knew Tanya by heart. When he grew up in Chaslovich, his father was the Rav Moshe Soloveitchik in the town of Chaslovich, and he went to a Chabad cheder at a Chabad Malamed, and he began his life by learning Tanya, and he never stopped, he never forgot it, he loved it, and he learned it, and he knew it Bal Peh, the Rav. Soloveitchik knew Tanya by heart. He was a brisker, but he knew Tanya by heart. It had a very close place to his heart. And Mori Rabbi, my Rabbi Rav Shechter, I've asked him several times what sefer he turns to, and he's looking for inspiration, a pick-me-up, when his neshama needs to be nourished. And he said Tanya. He loves sefer Tanya. Rav Shechter also knows Tanya. And yet Rav Shechter says that Rav Soloveitchik in this, in Rabbi Holzer's book, which was collected from tapes, conversations with Soloveitchik said that, of course, this was the opinion of the Alter Rebbe, but who says we need to focus, we need to emphasize? There's so many parts of Tanya which are so delicious and relevant and accessible to all. We don't necessarily have to focus on the parts which are complicated to fully understand, and he thinks it's a mistake for those who derive a particular pleasure by thriving from that. But it is undeniable. So we're going to unpack this more on Shavuos. Our theme here at Boker Raton Synagogue on Shavuos is why the Jews, history and halacha and history of hate and our role in the world. So one of the talks I'm going to give is, are the Jews the chosen people or the choosing people? Is the Jewish soul superior to the non-Jewish soul? And this is a big debate. Tanya, the Kuzari, and others. It's not simple. It's not pasha. But the Alter Rebbe makes his opinion, his position very clear from the outset. In Perek Aleph, chapter 1, the Jewish soul in the Nefesh Bami, in the animal soul, versus the non-Jewish soul. So my friend and teacher, Rabbi Tago, we're blessed to have in our community, who is a true expert in Tanya and so many teachings of Chabad. So he shared with me the following. He said, what the Alter Rebbe is explaining, the basis is that the identification of Klippa with evil is wrong. Klippa doesn't mean the notion that we have this Klippa, this husk, this peel, this layer that blocks the light. It's the downside of our senses experiencing the world in an ego way, is not necessarily, our senses through ego is not evil, is wrong. The Alter Rebbe says in Perek Vav that Klippa is not necessarily a person who's harming someone else. If someone who's simply pursuing his own self-interest, doing what makes him feel good, that's also Klippa. In other words, person who volunteers for the Chevra Kadisha, person who volunteers in a soup kitchen, a person who calls someone who's alone and shut in, person who makes a meal for somebody who's sitting Shiva. But why do they do it? What's the motivation, the incentive, what drives them? Why? Why do they do it? Is it because it feels good? It feels good. It's geschmack. I volunteer. I show up. I donate. I give. I care. And that makes me feel good. Makes me feel worthy. Makes me feel I'm doing the right thing. It's so what's the motivation? Yes, it's a beautiful outcome. The result is excellent. But the motivation is it makes me feel good. Now, by the way, that's a very high level. That's what he means. That Klippas Noga is not evil. Klippas Noga is just when something is the outcome, the motivation, the drive of the ego. Not the ego put my name in lights, not the ego honor me at the dinner because I do those things. You can be serving the ego even when you volunteer or donate or do in a way that no one in the world knows. You donate anonymously. You go and you drop something off at someone's house. They don't even know it was from you. You volunteer, you show up, nobody knows. The ego doesn't mean that you're getting honor or glory or credit for it, but it means, why do you do it? What drives you to do it? Because it makes you feel good. As opposed to what? This is what Hashem wants me to do. This is my mission and my purpose. This is my altruistic, benevolent, magnanimous, what I want to do for the other. It has nothing to do with me or how it makes me feel. So says the Alter Rebbe, a Yid, a Jew, has altruistic feelings naturally. A Jew sees another Jew in pain or in trouble, jumps instinctively, runs, wants to help. Doesn't say, if I help, I'll feel really good. They don't think about how it impacts. They're not driven or motivated by the ego. It's not, I'll get something, a positive feeling out of it. Not that they want a plaque, not that they want to be honored, not that they want to be mentioned. Not even because he knows that he's doing something right. Not because he read or he learned or he went to a class and he heard, oh, that's right, let me do it. I should do the thing that's right. No, he jumps because a Jew feels for another Jew. A Jew feels for another Jew. So what the Alter Rebbe is saying is that a non-Jew, the animal soul, doesn't have that instinct to jump because someone else needs help without asking how that impacts the self or the ego. He may do good, a lot of good, may volunteer, may do it even without wanting credit or honor. And yet what is the motivation? that makes me feel good, that makes me feel the best version of myself, that makes me feel satisfied. Lihis yahar means to feel proud. Not a pride that I want the whole world to know, but a pride that, a person does something good. I know as a rabbi, I do a lot of things very publicly in a very public stage. A lot of people see. I get a lot of honor. It's not good for me. Baruch Hashem, I have people in my life that help make sure that that's not a problem. But when I'm able to do something that no one knows is when I'm the most proud. I feel the best. I feel the best. It feels geschmack. Not when you speak at the funeral that was so well attended. Not when you speak at the very prominent public figure and the whole world is there and you came up with a eulogy with a hesped. When you showed up and there was almost no one there, there wasn't even a minion. You drove far and you gave a heartfelt eulogy that you worked as hard on, you prepared, not because anyone would know or the size of the crowd, because it was the right thing to do. You feel good. You feel good. So pride doesn't mean that you get glory or honor. Pride means it feels geschmack. So the non-Jewish soul, the highest level it can go is, I feel proud. That makes me feel I'm doing something good. That makes me feel gratified and satisfied that this is the right thing without anyone else knowing, but this is the right thing. It's good for me. But the Jew jumps and can do the right thing and cares about another, not because it feels good and it's the right thing for me, but because the I is oriented, its existence, towards another Jew. It jumps and it cares and it gives and it does in that way. It's very critical to understand here that the Alter Rebbe is not suggesting that the Jewish soul, the non-Jewish soul, is inferior, is less than, that we're judgmental of it, that we're denying that the non-Jew can do wonderful things. I'll close. First of all, there's a letter of the Rebbe himself. Another great teacher of mine, Rav Vovsky, shared with me that the Rebbe himself writes a letter. I'm in receipt of your letter in which you refer to a discussion that you had on the question of whether or not Gentiles have a neshama. I cannot see where there could have been any difference of opinion on the matter, inasmuch as it explicitly stated in various sources, also found in various sections of Tanakh, that Gentiles also have a neshama. It seems to me you may have been arguing at cross purposes, and that perhaps the question related more to the fact that there are different levels and qualities of soul. Now, if this was a point of contention, it's true that the soul of the Gentile, the soul of the Jew differ in their nature. This being connected with one of the basic principles of the Torah, the fact that the Jews are a people chosen from among the nations of the world. This chosenness originates in the fact that when God was about to give the Torah at Har Sinai, he first offered it to the other nations who refused it. Jewish people did accept it. Needless to add, this is in no way inconsistent with the statement of the sages, the fact that the righteous among the Gentiles have a special status. The Rambam says also have a share in the world to come. Tzadiki umas ha'olam. They are righteous Gentiles. And non-Jews can do incredibly righteous things. Judging by your letter, it's surely unnecessary for me to emphasize to you what has already been indicated above, that our belief in the chosen as the Jewish people is not a matter of chauvinism or fanaticism. The deep felt realization that this uniqueness carries with it great responsibility and special obligation. And the Rebbe goes on in this letter, that when we talk about the elevated state of the Jewish soul, it's not to denigrate or diminish the non-Jewish soul, but it's to recognize the added responsibility we have. The non-Jewish soul has 7 mitzvahs in this world. We have 613. We have a higher level of responsibility and obligation. If we're in the honor society, then we have a certain code of conduct. We have a certain role and responsibility that we have to fulfill. Certainly, clearly, Tzaddik Yom HaOlam, as the Rebbe writes. And the Alter Rebbe too acknowledges that the non-Jewish soul can and does do wonderful things. Salam with this is Tiferes Yisrael of Yisrael Lipschitz, who lived in the late 18th, early 19th century in his Tiferes Yisrael on Pirkei Avos. He writes, I'll just read it to you in the English because we're out of time. We find that many pious of the nations, why is he writing this on Pirkei Avos? Because the Mishnah of Avos says, Chaviv Adam Shenivra B'Tselem. Every soul is precious to God because it was created in the image of God. It doesn't say Chaviv Yisrael. The Mishnah then goes on and lists Chaviv Yisrael. But first says Chaviv Adam. Adam means all of humanity. All of humanity. Every human being is created in the image of God and deserves that respect and that courtesy and that honor. So Tiferes Yisrael in those words, that every soul, called Adam, Nivra B'Tselem, Chaviv Adam Shenivra B'Tselem, not Yisrael, Adam, we find that many of the pious of the nations did more than recognize the Creator and believe in the divine revelation of Torah and perform acts of kindness to the Jewish people, but they conferred benefit on humanity as a whole. He's writing again in the 19th century. Among them were Edward Jenner, who discovered smallpox vaccines, saving tens of thousands of people from sickness, death, and disfigurement. Sir Francis Drake, who brought the potato to Europe, thus mitigating famine on several occasions. Johannes Gutenberg, who invented the printing press. Some of them were not rewarded in this world at all, like Johannes Reuchlin, who risked death to prevent the burning of the Talmud and died heartbroken in poverty. It is possible to imagine these great deeds went unrewarded in the world to come. God forbid. Surely we know that the Holy One, blessed be He, does not withhold the reward of any creature, but these non-Jewish souls certainly were rewarded in the world to come for the gift that they gave humanity, including the Jewish people. So the end of this first parak is not meant to denigrate the non-Jewish soul, but to elevate and feel a sense of obligation and responsibility of the Jewish soul. But make no mistake, the Alter Rebbe absolutely subscribes to the idea that the Jewish soul is inherently, categorically different, in this way, somewhat superior in the sense, its instinct and its capacity, that our soul is the capacity to do good for altruistic reasons, to jump because that's the service of Hashem and His other children, without thinking about, with pride, does that make me feel good? Does that give me satisfaction? Does that gratify me? So with that, we end Parak Aleph. Next week in Mitzvah Hashem, we'll begin Parak Beis, and we'll go from this animal soul that the non-Jew also has, even if different with Klipas Noga, to the Chelek Elokah Mimah Mamash, to the godly soul, the peace of God, the uniqueness of God that each of us uniquely are. We'll pick up from there.